Okay, it needs to be said. The Paolo Banchero disrespect needs to end now. Why Paolo Banchero established himself as something so much more in the third quarter of the season, and what's ahead for the Orlando Magic, including the biggest game of the year on Friday. It's Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is March 8th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the expert and site editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us on Twitter there. You can follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, it's time to name our third quarter MVP. And frankly, it's time for the disrespect to stop. It needs to stop. It's time for everyone outside of Orlando to recognize what's going on in Orlando. We'll explain that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, this great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So, look, I will freely and fully admit this. Orlando Magic fans, and I think I think I've mentioned this several times on the pod. I think Orlando as a city generally wants recognition. We are a young city. We are in the shadow of the behemoth that is Disney. We're, not Miami. We're not Tampa. We're not Jacksonville. We don't have a deep history behind us. And so I do think that as a city, Orlando has a little bit of the little brother mentality. Our university, UCF, is the little brother to UCF, FSU, Miami. They all, at least until this recent run, just wanted to see them do well, and as long as they got their chance to do a bye game and stomp them. This is I think deeply embedded in the psyche of the city of Orlando. I will admit this. When I was younger, I would watch SportsCenter and I would be ticked off that Tracy McGrady and how awesome he was always in the C or the D block, never in the A block, and even not realizing that the Magic were a 500 team and probably didn't deserve the A block. But this is, I think, something that is very much part of Orlando, of being in Orlando. This need to say, like, hey, look at this great thing that we're doing. Pay attention. Don't just wave us off because we got Disney, because we're such a young city. And I think that is at the heart of a lot of the conversations that Magic fans have had. And trust me, I've had these conversations with people, and I will say the same thing now that I say to them: just go out and win it. Go out and prove it on the court. If you do your work on the court, if they may be late, everyone may be late coming to the party, but eventually the Magic will get their attention and get their just desserts and get their just reward for it. We are beginning to see that. The Magic did get a game switched on to NBA TV here toward the end of the season. Not ESPN, not TNT, but it is what it is. And the Magic are going to make everybody know when they get to the playoffs. At the end of the day, if the Magic want to change narratives about them, if they want to get more national TV appearances, if they want to prove that they belong in the big picture, they got to win in the playoffs. They may not have to win a series, but they've got to perform in the playoffs. That is the only way that you shift narratives around this league. That's the only thing that matters. You get people talking and buzzing about you for a summer, then everyone's going to jump on the bandwagon. That's ultimately what we're going for. But what had Magic fans all up in a dander? What had Magic fans in a tizzy, at least in the groups that I was talking with, was a clip that appeared on the Ringer NBA show, and I believe it was Wosny Lambre, who kind of offhandedly said, some drafts you get Victor Wembanyama and some drafts you get Paolo Banchero. Now, he's been trying to walk it back all afternoon as Magic fans piled on him, and to that point, I will give him I'll give him the benefit of the doubt to say that his point was Victor Wembanyama is a once-in-a-lifetime prospect, and that certainly does mean the Spurs have a very bright future ahead of them. But I also think it is completely dismissive to what Paolo Banchero is doing. And I think that a lot of the frustration that Magic fans have is essentially this feeling, this belief that no one is paying attention to Paolo Banchero, that he's not even getting the just reward of being the number one pick. Forget that he is setting historical marks, that he is, his stat line at his age is only comparable to LeBron James and Luka Doncic, that every time we talk, even in Magic historical perspective for a 21-year-old, we talk about Shaquille O'Neal and Tracy McGrady. That's it. That's the class that he is in. Those two are Hall of Famers, by the way. And LeBron and Luka will be too, obviously. They're just, I think, unfortunately, and I'm not going to dignify too much of the talk there because, we could talk about who has the better young core. Tim Legler and our friend Adam Mares on another podcast compared the Magic's young core to the Rockets. There's just this feeling of dismissal of everything the Magic have done. It's almost like they're just the Magic. They've been bad for 10 years. They will be bad forever. And there's nothing you can do. Nothing they can do about it. One of my favorite Magic Twitter users, at I Like This Team, kind of said, you made it when the hot take artists are trashing your players. And to me, that is the correct take. At least we're being talked about a little bit. Even if it's woefully misrepresented. Because the bottom line is this. The Magic are fourth in the Eastern Conference. They're not going away in that race. Paolo Banchero was an all-star in his second year in the league. He's not going away. He is carrying this team, this young team, to a playoff spot in his second year, to potentially the 4 seed. And, one of my writers for Orlando Magic Daily wanted to do something about Paolo not getting national respect and all that. And I said, I'm not going to be overly obsessed with that. I get it. It drives traffic. I'm talking about it here. I'm not super worried about that. Do your stuff on the court and that stuff will take care of it. But it is undeniable that not enough people around the league, not enough pundits, observers, whatever you want to call them, not enough people are giving Paolo the hype and the flowers that he deserves. And some of that is he has been on national TV just once in his career, or traditional national TV just once in his career. NBA TV doesn't count. And that's odd for a number one pick. And that feeds this narrative that, Paolo's not doing much. He's not an elite. He's not a potentially elite prospect in this league. That's all wrong. Like, we watch him every day. I'm preaching to the choir. If you're a Magic fan, you're probably nodding your head, and I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. That's the truth of it. Because we know how good he's been. I'm going to name him my third quarter MVP. That's what this segment was supposed to be before I got on my tangent. He averaged 22.8 points per game over the 21 games of the third quarter of the season. Appeared in 19 of them. Shot 48.7% from the floor, 37.9% from three, 6.4 rebounds per game, 5.8 assists per game. What Paolo did over the last 21 games or so, the third quarter of the season, was establish consistency. The Magic knew what they were getting from him every night. He filled up the box score, rebounds, assists. He shot the ball efficiently. He established himself as a star already with especially how he carried the team through the second quarter of the season. He cemented himself as an all-star and potentially as a perennial all-star if this is the new standard for him. Paolo may not be super flashy. There may not be a ton of the crazy highlights, although he's got enough game winners to his belt, to his ledger, that people not considering him clutch or not understanding that he is one of the most clutch players in the league. Again, it's all about the lack of attention and the lack of notice. Paolo deserves it. He deserves your attention. He deserves your notice. He deserves all of it. And the only way he's going to get it is by winning in the playoffs. It's unfair. It's probably wrong. But the playoffs are the only way that he and this team are going to open everyone's eyes to how good they have been. So let's turn our attention to the playoffs then. The questions for the Magic heading into the final quarter of the season, which of course began on Wednesday. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players who are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us this week on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fits Fantasy Picks of the Week. Looking at the list, I'm going to say keep an eye out on Kelly Olynyk. Kelly Olynyk is set for an extended set as the Raptors starting center, and we know how good he can be. He can fill up the three-pointers. He's going to have to rebound a little bit with Scotty Barnes out, with Jakob Poeltl dealing with an injury. Kelly Olynyk is definitely a player to keep an eye on. And of course, the Magic start a set with the Toronto Raptors next Friday and then again on Sunday. So definitely someone we have to keep an eye on. From the Magic perspective, honestly, I don't think I'm breaking any news here. I would definitely have Paolo Banchero on retainer. Big game in the Garden on Friday night. We'll talk about that in a minute. Big game against a bad defensive team against the Pacers on Sunday. You get the Nets on Wednesday and then the Raptors next Friday. Paolo Banchero, if the Magic take care of their business as they're expected to, Paolo Banchero could be in for some very, very big games for the Magic coming up. So, usually we don't highlight stars, but I'm going to highlight a star here. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. It's the same with your vehicle. With more than 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fits only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Be sure to make the Locked On Sports Today part of your day too. Locked On Sports Today is a 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and now available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So we are now officially in the final quarter of the season. 19 games remaining between now and the end of the season. The playoff hunt is on. The standings are tight. Exiting Thursday's game, the Magic lead the New York Knicks by a half game. We're going to talk more about that game coming up here in a minute. They're up on the Miami Heat for 6 by a game and a half. Philadelphia also a game and a half back. And up on Indiana, who the Magic plays Sunday, by the way. Fill the Kia Center for that game. We need to make that a playoff atmosphere. They lead the Pacers by 2.5 games. So Orlando, with the 5-game winning streak, this is a fun thing I'm looking at on the streak chart here. The Magic are the only team in the top 8 with a winning streak right now. Every other team in the top 8 in the Eastern Conference has lost their last game except the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic, I mentioned, I just spent God knows how long talking about how the Magic are not getting respected. The Magic did get some flowers from the national media. Tim Legler talked about them on the Scott Van Pelt show, like very honest, like very much saying like, hey, this team is really unique. They're fun. They're young, but they're really difficult to deal with. Gave some very honest assessments on them to a national audience. Spoke about them as well on another podcast. Jamal Mosley was on the Rich Eisen show. Paolo Banchero was interviewed by Taylor Rooks. Like there's a lot of, the Magic are getting some attention, are getting some positive press. I don't want it to paint a completely negative picture, but at the end of the day, what's going to matter here in the last 19 games are the results. Are you taking care of your business? And, we could go into all the different things the Magic can accomplish the rest of the way. The Magic are trying to get their first pair of 20-point-per-game scorers in Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner since Shaq and Penny did it in 1996. That is still a crazy thing to think about. The Magic are working on a top 10 defense, or top 5 defense, I should say, and they should hold true to that. But at the end of the day, what we're all focused on, what's going to matter as we get to these last 19 games is where are they going to finish? How are they going to set themselves up for the playoffs? How are they going to play for the playoffs? The Orlando Magic just completed a 6-1 stretch against 7 teams below the Mendoza line, below 500. They took care of their business against weak competition. And throughout that entire run, we said, okay, they won. That's ultimately what matters. But we consistently said as well, this is the standard the Magic have to meet. And the Magic didn't always necessarily meet that standard. That is part of this equation too. The Magic are playing for the playoffs. Everything they do from here on out is about the playoffs. It's about the playoffs. And playing a level of basketball that will help them win. Because guess what? They're fighting for the 4 seed. The 4 seed has home court advantage. The 4 seed should win, should beat the 5 seed. And certainly I think some of us are scared of playing Miami. Certainly, I don't think New York is a pushover. Cleveland certainly isn't a pushover. Whoever the Magic face in the first round series, it's going to be a fight. And so the Magic need to be spending this time preparing themselves for that fight. That's what matters right now. That's what's important right now. That's what is going to determine what kind of season the Magic end up with. That's the truth of it. And so Orlando has their work cut out for them. Orlando has a lot they've got to accomplish. And their eyes are clearly on this playoff, Jason. I think, again, Jamal Mosley has always done a great job at this. He's been preparing this team for this stretch of games for the playoffs from the moment he stepped foot in the Amway Center, in the Kia Center, in the Advent Health training facility, wherever they were practicing, whatever the training facility was at the time. They have been preparing for this the entire time. I've said this for several years. Jamal Mosley is so good at keeping the team focused on the big picture, understanding what that big picture is, and playing up to it. He is so good at it. And this is what it's all prepared for. This is what it's all come down to. This is what it's all been for. Everything, we could ask a whole bunch of really important questions. Can Cole Anthony bounce back from this cold streak? What will Paolo and Franz do? We can ask all these questions, but at the end of the day, the only question we want answered from the final quarter of this season, where are the Magic going to finish? What will their final seeding be? That's the question that matters, and that's the question the Magic have to answer. They get to start answering that question with a pair of humongous games this weekend. We'll talk about the Magic taking on the New York Knicks and what that's going to show us coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 8 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you cannot find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring, and you should too. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, we are here. The last time we hyped a game up like this it obviously did not work out that well. The Magic traveling down to Miami to close a 5-game road trip. And the Magic absolutely looked gassed in that game. I drove down to Miami for that game, talked to a few people on the road trip, and they more than one person said, yeah, this one could get rough. The road trip's starting to get to us. So not ideal conditions for the kind of game that we put a lot of pressure on. Magic lost it. They don't have the tiebreaker with the Miami Heat anymore. So we move on. The Magic, though, have not played very stiff competition lately. That's, no offense. That's you still got to win the game. You still got to take care of your business. There is no shame in winning games you're supposed to win. They all count the same. Everyone's got to play these teams, however many times they got to play these teams. You got to take care of your business. And again, the Magic have done that. No fault of their own, but we are all curious if they are up to the challenge. We are all curious if they can ramp up and play some of these elite teams. Now, we're going to get a chance to see that happen during the homestand, when the Clippers come to town, when the Warriors were playing much better come to town, although they lost tonight. When the Kings, who are struggling a little bit, come down, when the Pelicans come to town, you got 2 games left against the Pelicans. There are still challenging games ahead, but no game until the very, very end of the season when the Magic play the Bucks, Sixers, Bucks to end the season. No game could have bigger standings implications than this one. The Magic have already won the tiebreakers with the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers, so that part isn't important. What is important is putting distance between them. The Magic lead the Knicks by a half game. You lose on Friday, Knicks seesaw into 4th. You seesaw down to 5th, potentially lower, depending on results elsewhere. The Indiana Pacers, 2.5 games back. You beat them on Sunday. Suddenly you're 3.5 up with 17 to go. It's not impossible to make up that deficit, but now you've got some breathing room. Now you've got some distance. At the end of the day, what we've been saying, and we'll go through the standings. We'll talk about the standings. We'll keep an eye on the standings. Like, that's our job as the media. But let me say this. It doesn't matter what those other teams do. The Magic have to take care of their business. If the Magic take care of their business will take care of them. They will end up exactly where they're supposed to be, provided they do the job. That's what we're talking about here. That's what matters for this team. And so that's kind of the message now. They got to take care of their business. And the Knicks are a difficult team. They're struggling right now. Injuries have really hit them hard. Julius Randle's still out. OG Anunoby's still out. Jalen Brunson's questionable. They are a team that is ripe for the picking and a team that has really struggled. 3-7 in their last 10 games. They are a team that can be beaten. And Orlando's obviously had their number, their size, their physicality bothers them. Even if Wendell Carter, who's listed as questionable with a sore right knee, cannot go, Goga Bitadze is plenty physical to deal with Isaiah Hartenstein, to deal with the players on that roster. And the Magic have won a rock fight at the Garden. I was there for that. They've won games against them at Kia Center. The Magic want some confidence. The Magic have not faced the Knicks at full strength. So I'm not going to sit here and say Magic win this game, 5-game series over the Knicks, done deal. No, that's not how this works. The Knicks are a significantly better team when they are fully healthy, and the Magic have not seen them at that level. But this is a statement time. This is the time to make a statement. We started the show talking about how no one's talking about the Magic. Well, a 21-point comeback, a 5-game win streak at this stage of the season, sitting in fourth, that is a statement. It has forced people who are paying attention at least to notice, to say, whoa, the Magic are doing something. Beat the Knicks. Obviously, they're the Knicks. They get a lot of attention. Beat the Knicks, solidify your position in fourth. Now they all have to talk about you. Now you've told the whole NBA world, hey, you thought you had a couple years before we were doing this. We're doing it now. Why not us? Why not now? It's the 35th year anniversary after all. Indiana is the same way. You make a statement against one of the darling young teams in the league, against a team that pushed a lot of chips in to be good this year, and you're putting them further down. You're putting them away. You're putting them down the ladder in the standings. These are the two biggest games left on the year. Like, yes, the Philadelphia game at the end of the season could be very, very big. The two Milwaukee games may end up being pretty big. There are big games still ahead. Golden State, the Clippers, Pelicans. Like, there are big marquee opponents still ahead. But the Magic control their own destiny. The Magic decide where they finish. And these are the games they have to win, because they've had some big marquee games. They beat the Celtics in the in-season tournament. That was a huge game, a lot of attention on their home floor. They took care of business. But those two games against Miami that we talked about, especially that second game against Miami in Miami, that they lost. They lost control over something that night. The national TV game against the Thunder. That was a chance to make a big statement on a national stage. And I didn't think the Magic played particularly poorly that game, but the Thunder were just a lot better. They did not get to make that statement. And like I said, at the end of the day, if the Magic do care and want attention, it's going to come in the playoffs. The playoffs are going to be the ultimate statement for this team, the ultimate statement for this franchise and for this team moving forward. But this weekend's going to go a long way to setting them up for success there. And, are these games must win? If the Magic want to be the 4th seed, they both are. If the Magic want to be top 6, they got to split. If they lose both, then the win streak starts to feel like a mirage. And so these games are very, very big for a lot of reasons for the Orlando Magic. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun places on podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can, of course, check us out on YouTube as well at youtube.com/@LockedOnMagic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. Coming up on Friday on the site, we will rank the Orlando Magic's potential playoff opponents at this stage. Definitely check that out. You can also check out my personal page, the Orlando Magic Hub, and subscribe to my Patreon there. Go to patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub for extra content and goodies too. Really appreciate all the support, as always, from all of you. Now that you're listening to us, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel. You can find that on YouTube, as well as now on the Amazon Fire TV app in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.